crash course in how to factor the correct way. So we're looking for two of these, two binomials that will multiply out to x squared minus 7x plus 12. We're trying to write it from standard form into factor form. All right, the only way that you can multiply, the first thing and the second thing to get x squared is if these are both x's. All right, so that'll be the same for most of these. Because the 12 is positive, we're dealing with same signs, right? Because that last number is positive. So the middle signs are both going to be the same thing, whether it's minus and minus or plus and plus. But this, because the middle term is negative, we know that they are both minus. Right? So they were both the same because the 12 was positive, but they're both minus because the 7 is minus. All right, we need two numbers, here and here, that will multiply to give us 12, and they will add to give us 7. All right, so multiply to give you 12 and add to give you 7 has got to be a 3 and a 4, and that's it. Okay. The second one, because it's a minus down here, a minus 24, we know we're going to have different signs. So one of these will be plus, and one will be minus. Now the middle sign here, because it's positive, what that means is that our bigger number, whatever is here and here, the bigger number has to be on the plus side. Okay, so we're going to find two numbers that multiply to 24 and will subtract to give us 2. So this is where you would list out all the factors of 24. 1, 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. All right. So we were looking for the ones that multiply to 24. Because it's a minus sign, they had to subtract to give us 2. So it's got to be the 4 and the 6. And like I said, the middle sign being plus here means that the bigger number, 6, has to be on the plus side. And the other number has to be 4. Okay. This third one here. Before we start, into this, the two factored forms, because the leading term here isn't a 1, we need to factor out the GCF here. So they all have a 4 in common. So we're going to do a 4 on the outside, and then we're going to divide each of these, 1, 2, 3. We're going to divide each of those by 4, taking away a 4. So 4x squared becomes just x squared. 4x will become x, 1x, and the 8 will become a 2. Alright, so this one is a lot like our second example here, because it's a minus 2. So we want two numbers that multiply to give us 2 and subtract to give us 1. It's a 1x there. Alright, so it's got to be a 1 and a 2. They've got to be different signs because the 2 is negative. If they were the same, if it was a plus here, they'd be the same signs. So it's got to be a 2 and a 1 to multiply to give 2. And we know that the bigger number is positive. So the 2 has to be positive, and the smaller number 1 has to be negative. Alright. X squared plus 6x plus 9. This is nothing special really. It's just the way that the way they write the answers is special. Two numbers that multiply to give you 9, and it's a plus, so they will add to give you 6. Alright, multiply to give you 9 and add to give you 6 is a 3 and a 3. The plus sign here says that these are the same signs. The middle one being plus tells us that they are both pluses. Alright, last one's here, difference of squares. So we're going to take x squared minus 25, and we're going to write it into two sets of parentheses, two binomials here. So the difference of squares, it's, there's a formula you can use, but when the first one, the first term is a perfect square, it's something to the second power, and the second one is also a perfect square, something to the second power, then you can apply this little formula. So instead of a squared, we have x squared. So we're looking for two numbers that will multiply by itself to give you x squared. Well, that has to be x and x. And two numbers that multiply to give us 25. The same number times by itself to give you 25. Has to be a 5 and a 5. And then the way the formula works is 1 will always be minus and 1 will always be plus. So it doesn't matter which one you put where. So x plus 5 and x minus 5. Alright, we can also do that with this 4x squared minus 49. Notice the 49, you can't factor out a 4, like we did with this one up here, because 4 doesn't go into 49, so you won't be able to do the GCF thing. You can just go straight into your answer, though. Alright. Two things that multiply to, or the same thing that multiplies to give 4x squared has got to be a 2x and a 2x. And then the same thing multiplied by itself to give 49 has got to be a 7 and a 7. And 1 plus and 1 minus. That's it. I think that's all the cases. Even if this makes complete sense, please check out the second video, because it gives you a technique that you'll be able to use for many problems, not just factoring.